Welcome to episode 8 of Social Justice Paladin. Episode 8 is Coffee, a Dark Roast Tale. Now, I like coffee. I like it a lot. I've been drinking it now for about 35 plus years. One to two 16-ounce cups a day, every day. Well, unless there's like some medical need for me not to, like fasting labs, in which case I get headaches afterwards. I like a medium-ish roast coffee with exactly 3 Truvia and a spoon of hot chocolate and a little half and half to turn it blonde. The addition of the hot chocolate to my coffee came after or while I was deployed in the desert. Coffee used to come in little freeze-dried packets in the MREs, and some of the MREs came with hot chocolate packets. Put them together, and we called them ghetto lattes. The hot chocolate cuts the bitterness of the coffee and the powdered creamer. But it was a long journey to arrive at the Truvia. I went from plain old granulated sugar to Splenda for a long time in order to cut calories. But then after a while, I discovered that Splenda, or as it's known as sucralose, is just sucrose with an added chlorine molecule. So it has the sweet taste of sugar in your mouth, but then when it gets down to your body, it doesn't know how to metabolize the chlorine, which effectively means 0 calories. But after a while of using 3 or more packets a day, of course they had to be packets or else the ratio would be thrown off. I know, it sounds too much like ADHD. But that meant I was getting a lot of added chlorine in my system and I was starting to feel it build up. So I tried stevia for a while, which is an all natural sugar, but it had a really bitter aftertaste. So after a while, I discovered Truvia, which is kind of a stevia and cane sugar blend, and that's something I can live with. I started drinking coffee back around 1986. At the time, I was teaching electronics in Biloxi, Mississippi at Hughes Hall at Keesler Air Force Base. And when you stand up and lecture for 5 hours a day, you have to keep your throat moist throughout the day. I tried cough drops and sodas, but 1 to 2 Cokes a day was getting expensive. Coke, of course, being a generic term. And then I found out the schoolhouse had a coffee club for $5 a week. Yeah, right, it's 1986. For $5 a week, all the coffee you could drink, sugar and cream included. Hook a brother up. At least the price is right. That went on for a few months, but I decided after a while to take over management of the coffee bar. It meant me buying the supplies once or twice a week and using the dues that were collected, and of course getting to work a little early enough to get the coffee started before class. But it was one of those big 5 gallon bun machines, so it really usually wasn't ready until the first break. But I could choose the coffee brand and excuse myself from dues, so I called it a win-win. From that point on, I was officially addicted. Well, I say addicted, but that's not technically true. Believe it or not, the DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Illnesses, which is published by the American Psychiatric Association, defines caffeine addiction as a problematic pattern of caffeine use leading to clinically significant impairment or distress is manifested by at least the first three of the following criteria during the 12-month period. Number one, persistent desire or unsuccessful efforts to cut down or control caffeine use. Check. Continued caffeine use despite knowledge of having a persistent or recurring physical or psychological problem that's likely to have been caused or exacerbated by caffeine. Check. Three, withdrawal as manifested by either of the following. The characteristic withdrawal syndrome for caffeine. Check. B. Caffeine or closely related substance is taken to relieve or avoid withdrawal symptoms. Check. Number four, caffeine is often taken in larger amounts over a longer period than was intended. Phew, I'm safe on that one. Recurrent caffeine use resulting in a failure to fulfill major role obligations at work, school, home, etc., i.e., e.g., repeated tardiness or absences from work or school related to caffeine use or withdrawal. No. Number six, continued caffeine use despite having persistent or recurring social or interpersonal problems caused or exacerbated by the effects of caffeine. e.g., arguments with spouse about consequences of use, medical problems, costs, etc., etc. No. Number 7, tolerance is defined by either of the following. A need for markedly increased amounts of caffeine to achieve desired effect. No. B, markedly diminished effect with continued use of the same amount of caffeine. No. 8, a great deal of time is spent in activities necessary to obtain caffeine, use caffeine, or recover from its effects. Well, I don't think shopping really counts, but that's a half and half. Oh, did I say that? And number 9, craving or strong desire to urge to use caffeine. Check. So I guess I'm kind of on the fence. I mean, I guess even though I need a cup of coffee every morning, I'm not technically addicted. Well, at least I haven't been diagnosed as such. Better to just let sleeping cats lie. And now a pause for coffee-related humor. I like my coffee the way I like my women. Sweet, white, and hot. You call it coffee. I call it an emotional support beverage. They always say safety first. Just kidding. Coffee's first. Safety is like third or fourth on the list. I like my coffee like I like my women. Black and strong. Someone stole my coffee cup, so I'm headed down to the police station to look over some mug shots. I like my coffee like I like my women. Ground up in little baggies in the freezer. For Mother's Day, a kid decides to make his mother coffee and breakfast in bed. She's thrilled, of course. Breakfast arrives on a tray, cereal, toast, orange juice, and coffee. But floating in the coffee mug is a couple of those little green army men from his toy box. She says, "What are those for?" The little boy says, "Well, I heard it from the commercial. The best part of waking up is soldiers in your cup." And finally, I like my coffee like I like my women. I drink tea.
Tea Earl Grey hot.
And now for coffee around the world. Coffee in Hawaii is known as Kona coffee. But to be honest, you don't ever want to drink Kona coffee straight. It just doesn't work that way. You usually have to blend Kona coffee with some other kind of coffee, or else it winds up being really strong and really bitter. Alaska. In Alaska, they drink a lot of coffee up there. They have a little because it's cold up there. They have little coffee shacks pretty much on every corner, and of course, the whole frontier attitude. There was this running joke up in Alaska that Alaskan people would uh, chew up coffee beans and then chase it with boiling water, and that would be coffee for them. Then, of course, there's Turkish coffee. I don't know if you've ever experienced Turkish coffee, but basically how it works is I could probably link a video to it. But what they do is they grind up the beans, they boil the grounds in the coffee water, and then you pour off the top. So inevitably, you wind up with about the bottom 1/4 of the cup of coffee is still the grounds, and you drink the coffee off the top until you get to the bottom. Once you get to the grounds, you stop drinking. And when Turkish coffee is inevitably really hot and really sweet, but black. Then, of course, there's always British coffee, which is also known as tea. Which brings me to a quick story about my father. Now, you need to know that my dad was a real man's man. He worked on the old oil derricks in Saudi Arabia in his 20s. He smoked those little unfiltered Camel studs, or coffin nails as they're known, and he always drank his coffee straight black. One day, when I was an adult, after I was already in the military, he and I were at the farm on one of those, dad's 3-day weekend visits kind of thing, and he and I were in the kitchen making coffee together. Well, together, but separate. He was done pretty quickly. I mean, he drank it black, so it didn't take any time at all. Mine, of course, takes a little longer. I had to add the cream and the sugar. Well, I mean, milk, really. I don't remember Mom ever having half and half, unless it came straight from a cow. and it was always straight sugar unless I wanted to use the pink stuff that my mom used, and then the time it took to stir it all together. Dad kind of gives me one of those sideways looks and he huffs, huh, might as well be drinking chocolate milk. Even though this was years before I started putting hot chocolate in my coffee. And finally, Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts. My wife grew up in New England, and up there they have a Dunkin' Donuts on pretty much every street corner. And I mean every corner. In my area, we have a QT pretty frequently. But imagine if you put every QT, 7-Eleven, Casey's, and Motomart in the country and push them all into about a 3-block area. I mean, there's a lot of Dunkin' Donuts up there, more than Popeyes are down south, if you know what I mean. So, growing up in that area, she likes Dunkin' Donuts. Me, I like Starbucks. After Dab's little quip about drinking chocolate milk, me and Starbucks kind of hit it off. For reference purposes, I like a venti white chocolate mocha normally, but during the Christmas season, I get adventurous and add peppermint to it. She goes to Dunkin' and gets a medium regular. I guess it just takes a lot less time to order. And don't even get me started on Panera slash St. Louis Bread Co. They have a light roast and they have a dark roast. That's it. To get something approaching a medium roast, you have to mix the two. Spoiler alert, it doesn't work. And Mac Caffeine is okay. It's a lot cheaper, but still drinkable. But the choices are somewhat limited. Better to just buy black coffee and doctor it up once you're home. But at that rate, it's almost as well as just having a Keurig on the countertop. And occasionally she'll go into QT and fix me a ghetto latte. She's so good to me. So there'll be a poll at the end if you want to participate. Are you a Starbucks kind of person, a Dunkin' Donuts kind of person, Panera, McDonald's, or just a write-in vote? Or leave a comment if you're so complicated that nothing else fits. Thanks for watching. Hey, just a quick 2 seconds at the end of this to say thank you and how much I appreciate all the support that I've gotten over the past few weeks. If there's anything in particular that you'd like, by all means leave a comment below. And thank you so much for sticking with me.